corners, dumpster fire burns wild. Chaos shenanigans at every corner, sarcasm a holy sermon in style. Dark chocolate melted chaos warmer. Fighting this timeline with snark, every soul welcome but no recorders. Baptized by laughter in the dark, we stand tall, scorning fake orders. In the church of law we rise, with chaos and shenanigans bright. Chocolate and sarcasm our rise, together we light up the night.
Hey, you guys. Well, so I had an article to start this out because this is not going to be a very long press conference. It's only about 30 minutes, with the 15 minutes everyone spends, wandering around looking at things and making sure the mics work, which, you know, in on all fairness, I'd rather have audio that works. So here's a little background into this. A famed Tennessee sheriff that inspired Hollywood movie, or Hollyweird, apropos, movie Walking Tall, implicated in his wife's murder. Good morning, everyone. It was long believed that Pauline Mullins Purser, the wife of legendary Tennessee Sheriff Buford Pusser, was shot and killed in an ambush meant for her husband, but new evidence suggests that it was the late sheriff who took his wife's life. A Tennessee Bureau of Investigation report uncovered inconsistencies in Buford's statements to law enforcement and others, District Attorney Mark Davidson said at a press conference Friday. Law enforcement officers uncovered physical, medical, forensic, ballistic, and reenactment evidence that contradicted the McNairy County Sheriff's account of his wife's 1967 murder. Now, the sheriff's story inspired the movie Walking Tall in 1973, along with several sequels and a 2004 remake, along with several books, Davidson said. Now, Buford died in a car accident in 1974. This case is not about tearing down a legend. It's about giving dignity and closure to Pauline and her family and ensuring that the truth is not buried with time, Davidson said. Yeah, I don't know about the reenactment. Maybe Judson Welker was there. There is a Canton, maybe there is a Canton link. The sheriff had reported that his wife volunteered to ride along with him in the dark early morning hours on a disturbance call. Yeah, because most cop wives are like, oh, a domestic violence call. Let me hop on in there, see if they need some Chex Mix. This is all the sus already, and I'm surprised even in the 70s, this was a little like, really, she went with you on a call? Voluntarily? He claimed that a car pulled alongside his car and fired several shots toward them, killing Pauline and injuring him in what he claimed was an ambush intended for him, carried out by unknown assailants, according to Davidson. Now, the sheriff who was shot in the ambush recovered from his injuries, and no viable suspects were found, along with no charges being filed in this case. But investigators now believe that Pauline was shot outside the vehicle, then placed inside the vehicle, which is not what Buford told investigators at the time of the murders. This was a cold case for decades, but in 2022, TBI agents took another look at the archive file and coordinated with our office. The work accelerated in 2023 and 2024. Pauline Mullins Purser was exhumed for an autopsy, Davidson said. It's been said that the dead cannot cry out for justice. It's the duty of the living to do so. In this case, the duty is being carried, or this duty has been carried out 58 years later, Davidson said. Investigators used modern forensic science and investigative techniques that were not available in 1967. A new autopsy revealed that cranial trauma suffered by Pauline does not match crime scene photos of the interior of the vehicle where she was allegedly killed. Blood spatter is on the outside of the vehicle, and that contradicts Buford's account of the murder, Davidson said. A forensic investigator also determined that a gunshot wound to Buford's cheek was a close contact wound, not a long range wound like he had said, and was likely self-inflicted. Now, blood spatter analysis also indicated that someone was injured both inside and outside the vehicle. Investigators now believe that the crime scene was staged. The sheriff spent about 18 days in the hospital and required several surgeries to recover. TBI Investigations Director David Rausch said in the press conference, the case was based largely on his statement and closed perhaps too quickly when it was happening. Investigators received a tip about the possible murder in spring 2023. The autopsy also indicates that prior to her death, she had a nasal fracture that had healed almost completely. The particular nasal fracture is common in DV or personal trauma incidents, so that is something that the investigation made note of. Now, if you are alive today, investigators believe that they have produced enough probable cause that prosecutors could have delivered a criminal indictment for murder. Pauline's death is not an accident. It wasn't an act of chance, but based on the totality of the TBI's investigative file, an act of intimate violence, Davidson said. Justice for Pauline has been a long time. Well, now we're basically just talking through the hearing, so I'll just take us to the hearing, which is better. So this is going to be Mr. Davidson. He is I believe, the district attorney, and praise Jeebus, the audio is actually pretty good. So let's get into this. It's not going to be a terribly long one, but we will get to hear from Pauline's her brother, and get to, honor, his loss as well. So, which might be the only thing that we can do for this victim at this point.
Good morning. Thank you all for being here. I'm Mark Davidson. I'm the District Attorney General for the 25th Judicial District, comprised of Hardeman, Fayette, McNairy, Lauderdale, and Tipton counties. I want to thank TBI Director Rausch and his team, especially ASAC Mike Parson and their investigative partners, for their passion, professionalism, and commitment to the facts. I want to thank our team, Special Counsel Amy Wyrick and Brandy Hitt, Senior Communications Strategist, for their excellent work on this case. And Chancellor Yancey Freeman and his UT Martin team for hosting this press conference and more, which I'll get to. It's been said that the dead cannot cry out for justice. It is the duty of the living to do so. In this case, that duty has been carried out 58 years later.
Okay, Tennessee, you went through all the trouble of having this live streamed and put out. And look, I speak as a tech moron who didn't realize that my camera was capable of greater definition. But did you have to film it in 48 or like 480, like on a potato?
The TBI, then the Tennessee Bureau of Identification, took the lead on this investigation into the 1967 murder of Pauline Mullins Pusser. She was a wife, a mother, and a sister whose life ended violently and unjustly. Her husband, McNairy County Sheriff Buford Pusser, reported that his wife volunteered to ride along in the dark early morning hours on a disturbance call. He claimed that a car pulled alongside his and fired several shots, killing Pauline and injuring him in what he claimed was an ambush intended for him and carried out by unknown assailants. Buford Pusser recovered from his injury. No viable suspects were developed and no charges were filed. This was a cold case for decades, but in 2022, TBI agents took another look at the archive file and coordinated with our office. That work accelerated in 2023, and in 2024, Pauline Mullins Pusser was exhumed for an autopsy. TBI completed their investigative process this year.
Okay, this is why I question why she didn't have an autopsy at the time. Regardless of, them believing hook, line, and sinker his story, you think they would have done an autopsy to save ballistic information. Again, if we go on the theory or with the general thought that here is this, stand against crime, hero police officer who got attacked and lost his wife, you think they would be Charles Bronsoning like Revengeation? They would not let this case go unless they kind of knew that the case was sus, which, yeah, okay.
And the file was forwarded to our office to review. The file is voluminous, over 1,000 pages, and employed modern investigative techniques and forensic science unavailable in 1967. It is thorough and exhaustive, and the scope and breadth of it exceeds our ability to discuss it in detail today. That is one reason we are making this a public record. Another reason is that Buford Pusser's account of the events of August 12, 1967, spawned the movie Walking Tall in 1973, several sequels.
Okay, that's them.
Those
Let's hope.
retellings generated substantial public interest.
This is a recording. How can it be buffering? I have internet. I have the interwebs. I have a bunch of signal. What is your problem?
That history must be measured against the facts in plain view. Justice for Pauline has been a long time coming, and thanks to all the hard work put in by so many, we're finally able to announce to Pauline's surviving family and to the public that we believe we are as close as possible to justice. The case file reveals inconsistencies in Buford Pusser's statements to law enforcement and others about Pauline's murder, including physical, medical, forensic, ballistic, and reenactment evidence that contradicts his version of events. I'll give you several examples. Dr. Michael Revelle, emergency medicine physician and medical examiner, opines with a reasonable degree of medical certainty based on crime scene photographs, post-mortem photographs, the notes of the then medical examiner, Dr. Peeler, the statement of Sheriff Pusser and his then chief deputy, and Sheriff Buford Pusser's own statements that events did not occur as stated by Buford Pusser, and that Pauline Pusser was more likely than not shot outside the vehicle and then placed inside the vehicle. Dr. Revelle opines that cranial trauma suffered by Pauline Pusser depicted in crime scene photographs does not match interior crime scene photographs of the vehicle. Dr. Revelle opines that blood spatter on the hood outside of the vehicle contradicts Buford Pusser's statements. Dr. Revelle opines that the gunshot wound to Buford Pusser's cheek was a close contact wound, not long range, as Buford Pusser described, and likely self-inflicted.
Again, these are all things that would have been clear as day to any investigator on the ground. So, was the entire police force corrupt? Do we need to look at possible corruption of people that are still alive? I understand that Buford is no longer living, but you've got to imagine that this is all documented, contemporaneously to that incident. So you had doctors knowing that they were looking at a contact wound. I mean, again, how deep did a rot go? Was it something that was just quieted? Now I'm all interested. Now I'm all like, this is conspiracy.
Kansas Bureau of Investigation Special Agent in Charge Corey Latham and National Forensic Academy Training Specialist Jason Jones conducted 3 series of bloodstain pattern analysis tests to replicate the bloodstain patterns on the hood of Pusser's vehicle and concluded that the bloodstain patterns were inconsistent with Buford.
Well, from Fair point, likely self-inflicted, or the assassin walked up to finish the job. Fair point. Fair point.
Pusser's statements and indicated that someone was injured both outside and inside the vehicle. Ballistics expert Dr. Eric Warren states in his report that the physical evidence in the case does not support Buford Pusser's version of events and instead is indicative of a staged crime scene. Also, the cartridge locations, bullet trajectories, and bloodstain pattern on the hood are inconsistent with Buford Pusser's statements. The autopsy of Pauline revealed a healing, prior to death nasal fracture on the right side of her nose, most commonly caused by interpersonal trauma. Our office, after review of the case file, believes that the TBI has produced evidence sufficient to create probable cause, meaning more likely than not, that would allow us, if he were alive today, to present an indictment to the McNairy County Grand Jury for their consideration against Buford Pusser for the murder of his wife, Pauline. That obviously cannot happen, but there is probable cause to believe that Pauline's death was not an accident, not an act of chance, but based on the totality of the TBI investigative file, an act of intimate, deliberate violence. Because the file speaks so strongly with its evidence, and because the case is of such public interest, we invite you to review the case file for yourselves. Were he alive, Buford Pusser would, like all of us, be presumed innocent until proven guilty. TBI investigative files are confidential under state law with very limited exceptions. Thanks to the excellent investigative work by the TBI and the public interest and historical significance of this case, our office, along with the TBI, made the decision to make this file a public record after closure by the TBI. We also made the decision to transfer custody of the file to the University of Tennessee at Martin, which has campus centers in our district and West Tennessee, including Selmer in McNairy County. UTM Chancellor Yancey Freeman and the University at Tennessee of Martin have generously agreed to serve as the long-term custodians of the investigative file. Their commitment to maintaining and preserving the integrity of those records will ensure that future generations, scholars, historians, and citizens alike will have access to the investigative file for inspection, for study, and for reflection. Our office went through the judicial process needed to get to this point. We recently filed a petition in the Chancery Court of McNairy County to release the TBI investigative file as a public record. Yesterday, Chancellor Bill Cole signed an order granting that request and making the file a public record. The file is in the process of being finalized by TBI and transferred to UTM. This, like the investigation itself, is a methodical and careful process to ensure high-quality access to this case and this investigative work. I understand everyone wants instant access to the file, but as you will hear, there is a process in place and a timeline. This case is not about tearing down a legend. It is about giving dignity and closure to Pauline and her family and ensuring that the truth is not buried with time. The truth matters, justice matters. Even 58 years later, Pauline deserves both. And at 10:22 this morning, I got an email from Oakley Dean Baldwin, which said, "Mark, on behalf of the Mullins family members, Griffin, Robert, and Trula Hall, many cousins, and other family members, we thank you for giving Pauline a voice from her grave." I'll now turn over the podium to Director Roush. Thank you.
Thank you, General. Thank you as well. My name is David Roush. I am the director of the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation. Sorry about that. Good morning. Thank you, General Davidson, for your leadership and partnership in this very unique case.
Sorry, guys. I was looking up to see if, when I realized how short this was going to be, I was looking up to see if there was going to be a hearing or any media conference today about the heartbreaking and just monstrous case involving the University of Kentucky cheerleader who was found with a deceased baby in her closet. So I was trying to find if that's going on. I'm continuing to look, but doggone it. Yes, Wolfram, I am having Jess look at the documents, if any of the documents came out, and downloading those right now to see exactly what we have. It looks like it's 125 pages of documents, but we can definitely go through those. Probably we can get started on those. I was just seeing if that hearing was taking place today. Sorry, I was trying to multitask and I'm not great at single tasking, but Baker makes it look so easy, which is not my forte.
This investigation is like none other. At the core, it demonstrates why we exist at the TBI. To provide a thorough investigation focused on the victim and relentless pursuit of the truth. For many, the story of Buford Pusser is part of West Tennessee history, and the shooting death of his wife, Pauline, has long stood as an especially tragic chapter. As the story goes, it was August 12, 1967. Buford, then the sheriff of McNairy County, got a call in the early morning hours about a disturbance on New Hope Road. Pauline went with him. As Buford reported, shortly after they passed New Hope Methodist Church, a car pulled alongside them and fired several times, killing Pauline and injuring Buford. The sheriff spent about 18 days in the hospital and required several surgeries to recover. The case, built largely on Buford's own statement, closed quickly, perhaps too quickly. In May 2022, TBI agents, prompted by lingering questions, worked with General Davidson's office to revisit the archived Pusser case file. That sparked internal discussions and renewed investigative efforts, which accelerated in the spring of 2023, when we received a tip about the possible murder weapon in the case. The work to develop more comprehensive understanding of the facts of the case using the full strength of the Bureau as it exists today has reshaped our understanding of what transpired nearly 60 years ago. The initial investigative efforts into the murder of Pauline Pusser were heavily focused on those who were believed to be enemies of Buford Pusser. The more recent investigative efforts casted a wider net to identify all persons potentially involved and all possible motives. Today, as you've heard, the General has taken steps to make available to the public the full record of this investigation. This is a rare step, but it's one that we support. It provides more transparency and demonstrates the exhaustive nature of our work in an extremely controversial and historic case. From our perspective, there are 5 key developments we've learned as a result of this recent investigative
what are the 5
endeavor.
things?
Number 1, significant inconsistencies in the statement of Buford Pusser and the physical evidence documented and observed. Number 2, recent statements provided by people associated with this investigation. Number 3, the autopsy of Pauline Pusser. Number 4, evidence examined by TBI personnel. And number 5, the review and studies of experts external to the agency, reviewed from a multidisciplinary approach. Now, we understand that you will have a detailed set of questions about this case. We expect that. The answers are all in the case file. And that's why we'd encourage the media or those in the public with an interest in this case to read the case file in its entirety.
And Jedi just sent me over what they had from the FBI, and then it looks like I have to fill out some FOIA information for the case file. But that is definitely something I am going to work on today, hopefully. So that is something to look into, because this case, again, don't tease us with this. I would have rather them, if they were going to have this, have a PowerPoint, have exactly what evidence they have in there, or at least the big things, because a general inconsistency, in a story during a traumatic thing isn't, entirely implausible to me. If let's, take Wolfram's thing, if, the bad guys came over and then did a close contact wound after they had taken care of the unexpected wife, then yeah, maybe his story isn't consistent, but were there other things in this man's character that made his inconsistency more suspect? I guess you got a tip about the weapon. Did the ballistics match, even though we know ballistics isn't as much of a, hard science as it is? So it is interesting. Sorry, trying to do stuff and do stuff. Mr. Mo is just over the moon, happy-tastic that the sales were really good, so he got his new whatever TV. Look, I am very happy for him, but I have no idea what he's talking about, and he keeps saying numbers like I'm supposed to know.
As General Davidson indicated, the case file is now a matter of public record. Our redactions are currently in their final stages, and upon completion of those redactions, the file will be formally transferred to UT Martin. At its core, the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation is a fact-finding agency. We work collaboratively with local agencies, external partners, and district attorneys general to find out what happened to the fullest of our abilities. We want to thank our law enforcement partners, the West Tennessee Regional Forensics Center, experts who are external to this agency, who work tirelessly with our team, and in particular, the many people who were interviewed in this case, who provided information to all.
And Jedi Jess is doing a big solid and filling out the FOIA information for me. So we should find out. I'll Venmo over her the cost, and we will find out exactly what they have, because now I really want to dig in. Again, I don't like these teases. This is information tease, and I refuse. Fun Diane, that is the interesting question. So the case was never solved. There were no suspects that were found, even prior to Buford passing away. That being said, I guess in 2022 or 23, the TBI received a tip about the murder weapon, and that's why they opened everything up. So it is interesting. Well, the case is closed because Buford is passed on, and so is his wife, who was killed in the attack. So ostensibly, if they do believe that all their evidence leads to Buford, then there's no one to try. There's no one to indict. Although I posit that there are plenty of people to indict if they ignored actual evidence and actual, inconsistencies in his story that made it impossible to find people. I would contend there's dereliction of duty, though I don't know how you would charge it or if any of the people are, within the investigation are still alive today.
Our agents that is often very difficult to disclose. We are confident that we have exhausted all investigative leads that are available to the agency at this time, and are also confident that we have provided District Attorney General Davidson with a work product that gives him the answers he felt were much needed to make decisions about the closure of this case, and prosecutorial decisions he would have made if Buford Pusser were alive today. TBI stands united with General Davidson at this time, confident in the thoroughness of this investigation and satisfied the request to close our case file is a just resolution to this cold case. In closing, I'm incredibly proud of the work of our team to apply best practices, modern forensics, and investigative prowess to give this case the fresh look that it needed and deserved. This is who we are as an agency. In this case, as in every case in which we have the pleasure of contributing in the search for answers and the pursuit of justice for victims in the state of Tennessee. Thank you. Chancellor.
So good morning. It is great to be here with all of you at the Somerville Center for this momentous event and occasion. I'd like to especially thank the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation, Director Roush, and the office.
Oh my God, the amount of time y'all spend congratulating yourselves and giving yourselves participation awards. We could have been talking about the case file. There's a reason I'm not in an office. I don't think I'd do well. I'd be like, this could have been an email and not a meeting, unless you'd like me to tell you about yourself.
Office of District Attorney General for the 25th Judicial District and District Attorney Mark Davidson for their partnership and trust in transferring these important files and historical records to UT Martin. We are honored to assume the stewardship of the historical case files regarding Ms. Pauline Griffin Mullins, a process we approach with care to ensure both transparency for the public and the perseverance of these important records for generations to come. At UTM, we see this as more than a transfer of documents. It is a powerful teaching and research opportunity. Our criminal justice programs offered at the main campus, at our regional centers, and fully online now extend to a new master's program in criminal justice. These files provide our students with an invaluable real case scenario, real case study. For UT Martin, accepting the collection is an act of service, aligning with our mission to engage, educate, and preserve the stories that shape the communities we serve. This case file will support not only criminal justice students, but also scholars in communications, history, sociology, and law. It offers rare access to primary resources that can inspire new research, publications, and conversations around justice and transparency. Our commitment is to serve the public good. By safeguarding and sharing these records, we ensure that an important piece of Tennessee's history remains accessible to all. Once the files have been received, they will be processed as part of our digital archive initiative. This processing step ensures the public will have ultimately high quality, a searchable online database to the records. Because this is a careful and ongoing process, online availability will take a little bit of time. To ensure compliance,
Okay, how long's a little bit of time? I mean, again, that should be something that I would think you would have worked out prior to announcing this. Like we took 3 weeks, we got it all, loaded up, and you have access to it now as it goes live. Again, I'm just being an impatient butthole, but as an impatient butthole, I would just love to have, like answers rather than, you telling me that, hey, in some point down the road, we're going to have all of these documents when you're announcing a big thing that changes the kind of mythology of America in the most in the most literal sense as a Hollywood kind of fairy tale of the lone sheriff, protecting his town, standing tall. I mean, if you are going to go ahead and say the story is not what we were told, then I would expect that you would anticipate many questions like the chat and I've been having, and you would have this information ready to distribute instead of, wait a minute, we've got to carefully document all these things on the Xerox machine.
with the Public Records Act, while this digital processing is underway, 2 additional copies, accessible copies, will be available. One, the public may view a printed copy of the files by scheduling an appointment at the UTM McNairy County Selmer Center. And 2, a request may be made to purchase a reproduced copy of the file. In closing, this is about honoring history, serving the public, and creating opportunities for learning. We thank the TBI for entrusting us with this responsibility, and we look forward to making this important record accessible in a careful, transparent, and respectable manner. Thank you.
Thank you, Chancellor. And with that, this is now the video statement I mentioned earlier from Griffin Mullins. He is the brother of Pauline Mullins Pusser.
Terrible name. Pusser.
Pauline was my oldest sister. She was the leader of our family. She was the most caring, personable person that you would ever want to meet. You would fall in love with her. She was a people person. And of course my family would always go to Pauline if they had an issue or they needed some advice. And she was always there for them. She was just a sweet person. And I loved her with all my heart. And I've missed her horribly this last 57 years. Lord knows I missed her. I am devastated. It's been a long time since she left, but I always had in my heart, I've had a lot of time to think and to look back at Pauline's life. And she didn't tell me a whole lot. She was just not the type of person to tell you her problems. But I knew deep down there was problems in her marriage. If I only known now what I knew then, she would have never went back to Tennessee. she would have been right here with me. Perfectly honest with you, I'm not totally shocked. And I would just like to say how happy I am to have TBI and Mark Davidson, the district attorney, in my home today to give me some of the news. I know in my heart that they have poured their life into this investigation. And I just want to tell the people, whoever side they're on this case, accept their findings, which I'm going to do, and finally get myself a closure after these 57 years. Just thank God that I finally got a closure. I lost my other sister, and I'm just sorry that she's not here to learn.
I think his words were reversed. Yeah.
So now she's gone home to be with Pauline, and I'm sure they're rejoicing. And for that, helps ease the pain for me. I think I can lay down tonight and have some peace in my mind that I'm very aware of what the TBI has done. I feel very comfortable with it, and this is closure for me and my wife and my 2 daughters. And I'm just thankful that I got the news and not be like my sister and pass before we finally have learned.
And with that, we will be taking questions.
I'm Martin Scott with Fox 13 News, Memphis. My question's for Mr. Davidson. It's actually 2 real quick. The first is, does the file say that he staged that shooting on the road? Did he have help? And the second was, can you talk about the moment when you looked at that vast file and the realization that a Tennessee law enforcement legend is coming down off that pedestal?
Well, to answer your second question,
They're going to ask you to step up to the
Okay.
officer. That's okay.
this is obviously not something you take lightly. The Walking Tall story has been a story that I knew growing up with. I know many of our law enforcement partners maybe even became law enforcement because of that story. But the investigation was important enough to be able to push that aside. It's been a cold case for so many years. And when TBI was able to apply the full scope and breadth of their investigative abilities, they just followed the facts and the evidence where it went. That's where we are today. And it's at the end of the day, you're looking for the truth. So really, no one's above the law. I guess that's one thing you could take away from this. As far as your first question, is the file going to say that he staged it? I gave you some of the evidence. One expert who said that it appeared to be staged. That's probably as close as you.
Okay, but who's the expert? Judson Welsher? Did you get Aperture or did you get, Acra? Or, God, what, Acra? Did you get a reputable company or did you get Mr. Blue Man Paint? Again, I need to, this is maddening.
You're going to get in the file. The file is not going to give you he did it and this is exactly how it happened summary. It's replete with evidence, statements, analysis from different experts from different fields, many of which I talked about.
You have a gift for being about as useful as tits
Draw
on a
your own
bull.
conclusions. But no, there's not going to be a statement from somebody saying he definitely staged the scene, but there is an expert who says it appears it was staged.
no other questions?
Melanie Keene, McGarry County News. He asked somewhat what I'm gonna ask too, is does this show that anyone helped Buford or he acted alone in this? Any idea?
Yeah, I'll attempt to answer that. What you'll find in the case file is all of all
Boosh, this is so the story, the real person behind Walking Tall, the movie, I guess movies and book, Buford Pusser, I'm going to say Pusser, unfortunate name. It looks like the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation has credibly said that with the look at his wife's death and his injury in the ambush that took her life, it looks like the crime scene was staged, and they are trying to say that if Buford was still alive, they could indict him for the murder of his wife. That being said, Jedi Jess is helping me fill out the FOIA information to get the case file. So that will be interesting. And in theory, there is supposed to be a hearing for Laken Snelling, that cheerleader who was found with her baby in the closet at 1. So I am keeping an eye on that. If anyone sees a link up from Law and Crime or Court TV or anywhere local, I'm trying to keep my eyes peeled. But we will look into that because those cases just, there are some cases that don't just irk the living, I can deal with them, they're evil, but that's like all the shades of evil. So I am going to be on her like an avenging mom.
All of the statements and interviews of various individuals that both at the time and currently that were talked to by our investigators, and then you'll have an opportunity to look at all the evidence as well from the scene, and then the current forensic technologies applied to that evidence and what that shows, and so you'll be able to get a clearer picture as you review the file of what the potential was on that evening. Okay.
Director Raj,
Yeah.
Lucy McGee with News 2 out of Nashville. I want to go back one more time about kind of what inspired you guys to retake a look at this case. You mentioned some internal discussions and things like that. Can you go over that one more time? And then you mentioned the weapon as well.
Certainly. The question is about what inspired our team to take a look at this again, and then
Yes.
Any information about the weapon itself that we were that came into our knowledge. So as with most cases that have yet to be resolved, our team is always taking looks back and trying to see if new sets of eyes can determine information that might help in these cases. And we've had a push in the past few years on Code Case, taking a look at all of our cases that have yet to be resolved and trying to determine if there is more investigative effort, could it turn out more information? And this was one of those cases that was picked up and looked at. And as the investigators read through the file, they noticed some possibilities of a different direction and more information that was burning that we needed. And so that led to kind of the further look at it, and then just fortunate that we got a call about the weapon, and so that potential homicide weapon was provided to us, and so that too was part of our evidence to further the investigation, and really kind of took the investigation a little.
Okay, what was the chain of custody? Who held on to this weapon for those many years? Are we sure that this weapon has ties to Buford? Again, who the hell, when I am the voice of reason, okay, when I am the voice of reason that says you shouldn't have had this press conference without having the case files available and open to the public so that people could look up all of this information because there's going to be a lot of questions and you're being about as coherent as wingdings in a blender. Sorry, y'all, my leg is hurting. I am probably having not as much patience as I should. Agatha is in no mood to deal with random babbling that has no actual factual evidence.
In a new direction with with new vigor.
Okay,
New
that
vigor
weapon
as
backed up
opposed to
to the
old vigor.
autopsy findings?
What I'd have to direct on that is to read through the case file to get more specific in there with the weapon, the type of weapon, and then what the
Brandon, it is Tuesday the 2nd. I hope you're doing well. Good to see ya.
autopsy findings have.
Wait,
Yes, sir.
so
Dr. Roush, if I understand what Martin Staunton, again with Fox 13
Yes.
News out of Memphis, it seems to sound like Pauline was a victim of domestic violence when you talk about the injury to the nasal passage. Am I making too big a leap there?
So
oh my God, no, we need to go back. This is the first time in documented, and look, Mo is on a roll. She is dealing with no bit of stupidity. And I just heard up talk from a daggone man. So I don't want to take like a leap or anything, but did I just hear up talk from a man? We're backinating. We're backinating because this just will not stand.
no.
Injury to the nasal passage.
The nasal passage? We need a test count on this man immediately. I have never heard this audio quality in a man. I need more sleep. I should not be making a big deal out of this, but this is one of my biggest pet peeves, and I've never heard a man ever do it before, and now he's done it, and it just pisses me off so badly.
Am I making too big a leap there?
So no, I would tell you that that again through witness interviews, statements from individuals who were around during that period, you'll find that you're not making a leap.
And any reaction?
Tammy Fayette, we are going through this this press conference because there has been a story that's come out. Basically, Buford Pusser, the sheriff behind the movies Walking Tall, and I think there were several books, has been accused by TBI posthumously as possibly staging the ambush that killed his wife and injured himself. Now, they are saying all of this basically without having given out the case file that they say they are painstakingly transferring over to a public website. It's going to take a little bit of time. I didn't know that Xerox machines were so hard, but okay. So Jess did send, Jedi Jess, our awesome help, she sent a FOIA request for the CSI file, or not the case file, not the CSI file. But they have been alarmingly vague and very, very obtuse about what prompted them to take this. They had never solved the case. They had never figured out who attacked Pauline and killed her and Buford. So they're being very cagey about what, prompted them to reopen this case or actually start to look at it again. So I am waiting for those case files to come back because Something doesn't sound right. Again, if there are all these indications that the crime scene looks staged, it looks staged in the 1960s. It, continued to look staged. If, they had always thought that Buford's wound to his cheek was a contact wound, why didn't they call him out on when he was giving his statement that, no, Buford, that's a contact wound? So it is interesting because now with what they're not providing, it's making me want to dig into it more.
From Pusser's relatives, did you guys approach them and talk to them during the course of the investigation?
I'll have to defer, Mike. Yeah.
Yes, there were individuals within the Pusser family that we did speak to, but I would not go into what those exact conversations were, and I would just refer you to the file.
Okay, and what's your name, sir?
Mike Parson, Tennessee Bureau of Investigation.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Okay, that concludes.
Thank you all for being here. Thank you for your time. That concludes today's press conference. For any media outlets, come find me.
All right, so that was that. Now I do have, but I need to go through and kind of make sure what we've got. This Jedi Jess sent me the Federal Bureau of Investigation paperwork. So that is 125 pages just to go through, and I don't know if it's organized in any semblance of the words. So I'm going to be going through that, and then probably Tuesdays we'll do deep dives. So I might be doing longer streams where I read this. JK Debug, she does have a FOIA in, so as soon as I get that, depending on, what comes through and when they'll be able to get it through, I might be covering this instead of the Donna show, because I'm much more interested in this than the Donna show. So once we get done with Chris Wolfenberger, we might go deep dive into this. So instead of doing Petty Express, I might be doing longer reading streams. But this is definitely, interesting. I am going to be keeping an eye out. The Lakin Snelling hearing is posted up for 1 p.m. in Kentucky today. That is the cheerleader from the University of Kentucky that they found with a baby in her closet. So I will be trying to cover that hearing if they do play it, or if they do a replay, I might do that this afternoon. So that's kind of my plans for the rest of the day. If there's any really big breaking news, I do want to start covering those. So if anything happens during the day, or you see something big and you'd like me to cover it, send me a tweet. I will be paying attention, but I'm also going to be looking through all of this paperwork because it is 125 pages worth of documents and taking notes today. God bless having a laptop so I can go lay down in bed, because Hagatha, the leg, is not happy, as you can tell, because I'm irritated about how a man tonally asked a question. Let me see who I can send you over to, though, so you guys can continue to have a fun day. Thank you for joining me for this. Tammy Fayette, it's alleged that he took the life of his wife. I didn't know a whole lot about this case. I'm going to actually have to watch the movie. I've never watched the movie, so I'm going to have to do that. But it was interesting to me that this, is kind of part of our American mythology, our Hollywood legends, and how that story we were told might not be the one that, actually happened. It looks like everyone is covering. Oh, well, let me see if I can pull this up, because we can hang out for a little longer. It looks like there is a naked woman car chase, and I mean, how can I say no to that? I mean, let me check and see if it's still going, because I don't know. Maybe I need to put live. I don't know how I do this. Look, this is what happens when you wake up at 3 and decide to be all productive and such. Live police chases. No, okay. I'm not finding one. I am going to go ahead and send you over to Defense Diaries. They are awesome, and he does a really good job. And then I'm going to be reading this paperwork and looking for that hearing for the rest of the day. And we will just be... Boosh, I am not sure. I made an executive decision that if I can't figure out the nudity or where to find the stream, I probably need to take a nap before the hearing that I really want to cover. So that's kind of where I stopped with that. Have a lovely rest of your day if I don't see you again, if they don't put the hearing up. Remember, be kind to yourself, be kind to others, but have a sassy mouth and carry a can of bitch fire because kindness doesn't equal doormat. I'm going to be looking at these documents and seeing what in the Walmart rapture are they trying to do here. Bye, you guys.